Hi guys, you're very early.
Hey. Oh wait.
Yep, that's fine, Amni. Thank you for letting me know. Don't worry about it. And Miss Nadia should be online via IG Live. And she's here as well.
Who are you talking to?
What?
In terms of the camera, it's up to you whether you want to switch it on, but I'll have mine switched on for the whole session.
Ma.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
Huh?
Dia student Anina
Ish.
Cik Alang?
Ban, benda belakang kau tu.
Yeah. What?
Belakang kau tu.
A wall?
No, turn back. Haha, you turn.
Okay.
Okay, guys. Can we please have our microphones mute? Thank you. Hi, Roberta. I can't hear you. Hold on. Sorry, Roberta, could you unmute yourself if you are ready?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's perfect.
Excellent, excellent.
Thank you.
As I said, I'm sorry,
we
but
begin?
I wanted to enter this beforehand, but I had trouble. I never used the system, so I wanted to. I mean, it took me a few minutes to connect.
Yep,
to
no
change the password
problem.
on the rest.
Glad you could make it.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, thank you, Roberta. So shall we begin, everyone? Is that all right? So just to let everyone know that we'll be recording the session for those who are not available to attend this evening. Okay, so hello everybody. Good afternoon to Roberta, and good evening to everyone here in Malaysia. Thank you for being here, and thank you for taking your time to attend the session, our first sharing session for the year. So anyway, let me just first briefly introduce our speaker for today. So she's Roberta Piazza, Dr. Roberta Piazza. She's a reader in English language and linguistics at the University of Sussex, Brighton, UK. And she's interested in research on discourse and also pragmatics. So today, she'll be sharing with you some of her research on critical discourse analysis. So without wasting any more time, the session is yours, Roberta.
Thank you. Shall I just, first of all, thank you so much, Zarina, for inviting me. It's really a pleasure. And for me, it's so interesting to be able to speak to you so far away. And it's really an honor to speak to you, to have this exchange with you. And I hope that we can continue maybe into another time. And also, I hope you have some questions or comments, because it's so interesting to hear from different kinds of students. And now, Zarina, I have a question. Shall I just go into my PowerPoint?
Yep, that's fine. You can do the present now button if you can see it.
Can you see it now?
Not yet.
No, okay. Because I probably have to share the screen, don't I?
Yep, probably.
Let me see if I can do this.
So there's a present now button.
Wait a minute. Where is it? Sorry, where would it be?
So it'll be on the right side at the bottom.
On the right side, I got 3 dots.
Yeah, so next to the 3 dots.
Next to it?
Yeah, towards the left of the 3 dots.
Oh, okay. So what does it look like? I have people, then I have, if I hover over them, they don't tell me what they are.
So there's a present now button.
Well, before the 3 dots, there is somebody that resembles a person, which is not the one I want, right?
Yep, no. Probably if
and
you
before
could
that, there's something that sorry?
If you could click in the middle, there's a button like something at the bottom, right? Like your microphone. Do you see it?
No.
No. Or do you want me to share? Because I have it on.
Yes. Why don't you share? Yeah.
I can.
As I said, I never used this system, so I don't know.
So just let me know when you want me to.
Yeah, well, you can do it now. You can do it now. Great.
Yep.
Thank you. But we got to open it bigger, to make it bigger now.
Yep. Can you see it?
Yeah, it's fine. Is that fine with you? Can you all see it? Yeah,
I can
great.
see it.
Okay, excellent. Okay, and right, in terms of scrolling it down, will I be able to scroll it down?
There you go.
Okay. Will you have to do it for me?
Yeah, I will have to do it.
I think you have to do it for me.
Yeah, no problem. Just let me know and
Okay.
I'll.
Thank you. So I'll just do this every time. Okay. So glad to start. So first of all, as I said, I'm very glad to be here. And this is a very short, I mean, Zarina asked me to give you some examples of what I do in terms of research. So I'm very happy to share with you a couple of a short summary of 2 studies as examples. So my area of expertise is discourse. So I'm really interested in spoken discourse. I don't know if Zarina told you that she did a PhD with Sussex, and I was really fascinated by her project on classroom discourse, because it's what students produce with their teachers and with their colleagues, and it's because it's spoken. So I'm really fascinated by the features of spoken discourse. But I'm also interested in this particular aspect, which is critical discourse analysis, and I will give you some ideas in a minute. So I'll give you these examples, and then hopefully we'll have time for comments and questions. I don't know. You said 20 minutes, Zarina. Did you? More or less.
I mean, if you want more time, go ahead.
Well, okay. Thank you. Okay, that's fine. Next, please. Okay, so why am I interested in language? I'm interested because I'm interested in seeing what people do with language and what they actually try to achieve through language. And in particular, I'm a discourse analyst or critical discourse analyst. Again, sorry for explaining things, but I don't know how much you know. But so better be clear than be obtuse and impenetrable. So I'm really interested in critical discourse analysis, which is one aspect of discourse examination that really is interested in power and ideology. Okay, now power doesn't mean political power. In fact, there are 2 aspects to power which are really important that we've got to clarify here. One is institutional power. So, for instance, the power of a judge in a courtroom, the power of a religious leader, the power of a politician, or the power of, if you wish, of a teacher in a classroom. But there's also another kind of power, which is interactional power. So, if I am a person who speaks to a friend, and so both of us have the same kind of degree of power, I can still exert my power by asking many questions, by dominating the topic, by initiating a conversation. So this is actually a different kind of power. So power really is everywhere. So we always exert our power, even when we are with friends, okay? So I'm really intrigued by defining power and how through language we do power. And then the other thing that really is of interest to me is ideology. And again, ideology doesn't mean the Marxist ideology or the Nazi ideology. It's not just political, it's a small ideology. So it's what refers to what we do through language when we want to persuade people of our ideas. But by that, I don't mean, again, politically, but I mean, oh, do you know, I want to buy this particular type of chocolates. Oh, no, these are the type of chocolates are better. So I can be discussing very, very banal, very basic things, but it's that kind of way that I frame a particular idea, that I convey a particular idea, that can go under the rubric of ideology. Okay, so we're talking about power and ideology as small things. And as I said, I'm really interested in spoken discourse in lots of interactional contexts. So more than actually looking at, for instance, newspapers or magazines, I'm interested in how politicians talk through to their electorate through television, for instance. And I'm also interested in the media discourse. I'm interested in for instance, how a particular program is conveyed, or that of news or classroom language. So I'm interested in when there is a dialogue, so to speak. Okay, thank you. So I prepared two examples, very different from them. One is a very timely example, is the communication about the virus, the pandemic. Okay, so COVID-19 communication. And the other one instead is about it's a completely different. I won't anticipate, so I won't kill the suspense for the other one. Okay, so what I'm interested in discourse, and discourse means lots of things. Discourse means the talk that people produce. Okay, so we are using discourse now because I'm giving you a lecture, but also discourse has another meaning, and sometimes in this term is used with a capital D, and it's the set of ideas and recurring themes or motives that create a particular way of seeing the world. Okay, so what I'm interested in here is to possibly capture that particular discourse about COVID that the UK Prime Minister and his cabinet conveyed to the people of Britain through the medium of television during the pandemic. What kind of things did he, through the choice of words, through the choice of repetition, through the choice of verbs, etc., etc., create? So what kind of imaginary did he create through his communication? Thank you. So this particular study can be contextualized within the literature on crisis. Now, I'm sure you know what I mean. Each study that you carry out, even though it's very small, needs to be nicely framed within the literature that is relevant. So for instance, if you're doing something on questions, you want to really explore studies on questions. If you're doing something on classroom discourse, you need to consult the literature, the research that's been carried out in that particular field, and so on and so on, and so on and so on, so on and so forth. So this study in particular can be framed within the research on crisis, because in a way pandemic was a crisis, wasn't it? So what is the reaction of politicians against in a moment of disarray, in a moment of a grave destruction and disruption? And of course, crisis can be of different kinds. Can be political crisis, can be financial crisis, or can be in this case natural disaster. So a virus that arrives from a part of the world that hits a country, and we don't know what to do. So that's a crisis, right? So we have to define crisis, because again, it's very important that when you look at anything, you define your term, because every term, every concept that is at the basis of your study needs to be clarified really in detail. So for me, crisis is an unexpected and unanticipated negative event. So it's not positive. Crisis is definitely negative, okay? And not only is it negative, but also triggers further negative consequences, okay? So this is the definition. Thank you. And what I really liked from Ogryzek and Guillory in 1999 is actually this definition. It's a very important point I'm making. It says, they say, in many crisis situations, the essential decision to be made concerns precisely the communication process itself. So yeah, that's important. That's what I thought that, yes, I want to do a study on this, because, you know, we have a crisis. How do we tell people about the crisis? Do we hide it? Do we say, oh, don't worry about it? Or do we say, okay, come on, you have to be alert. You have to lock yourself in the houses. What are the words that accompany the crisis? Thank you. And also, following Lawrence is a very more recent study, 2013, crisis is actually interpreted not just as a fact, but really a political discourse. And I love this very much, because it's not just the crisis itself. It wasn't just the pandemic. It was all the discourse and the words that surrounded the pandemic, that surrounded the crisis. And if you, I hope you agree with me, and I'm sure you watch different kinds of television, different kind of, or read or heard about different kind of news. Different countries react in different ways. For instance, we talk about New Zealand having no cases because they implemented a completely different response to the virus that was accompanied by a different kind of communication, very alarmistic communication, very let's close the door kind of communication. Okay, thank you. So I'll just give you two quick examples. These are the words of the Prime Minister. You can see how beautiful our Prime Minister is with his beautiful hairdo. He actually has a better hair in this picture than now, because he hasn't cut it for a long time. And how the BBC, which is the main television provider, TV provider, selected bits from his discourse, from his speech, and presented those to the viewers. Thank you. So I have two speeches. One is on the 23rd of March, which was really the commencement of lockdown. So the day that the Prime Minister said, let's close doors, you can't go out anymore. And then the second one is a speech that the Prime Minister gave on the 30th of April, when he started saying, look, we can open the doors again. You know, the lockdown is nearly over. The virus is nearly defeated. Okay, thank you. So what I'll do is I'll go quickly through the first one, not the second speech, but I'll leave it with Rena, and you can access anytime you like. So what I'll do is I will look at the first speech. And I will no, in a minute, just a minute, Serena, go back please. And I will pay attention to two things: the metaphors of fear, and at the same time the construction of a discourse of collectivism and solidarity that the Prime Minister pushed. Okay, and to do that, I will use content analysis, but also frame analysis of the Prime Minister's speech. So I will pay attention to what he says in terms of content, but also the kind of how can I say, little etiquettes, little labels that we can identify in the different portions of his speech that convey the way he expressed the different meanings. Okay, thank you. So these are the words of the Prime Minister. Is more or less all of the speech. I couldn't present all of it, but so I extracted all the parts, but it's in the sequence in which the speech was delivered. So where you see a parenthesis, a round bracket with dots, means of course that something is missing. Okay, I won't read it, you can read yourselves, but the first one is the Prime Minister defines the situation and the necessary measures. So he says the corona. This is the frame. I identify the frame as defining the situation and identifying necessary measures. And this is because he says the coronavirus is the biggest threat this country has faced for decades, and this country is not alone, etc., etc. And then he says, I have to tell you about the latest steps we are taking to fight the disease. Okay. The second one, the second frame, is warning about hardship, and the president says, the Prime Minister says, the way ahead is hard. Okay, thank you. Then he says another frame is the thank you frame. He says, I want to thank everyone who's working flat out to beat the virus. And then there's one, solid or fight. So fight all together, united fight. And he says, but in this fight, we can be in no doubt that each and every one of us is directly enlisted. And then the next frame is success and solidarity. And I know that as they have in the past, so many times the people of this country will rise to that challenge. We will come back, we'll come through it stronger than ever. Okay, so he's saying we are to be together and we win. Okay, thank you. Next. So what does the BBC do? Of course, BBC has a limited time, so they have to choose what to say. So it's actually quite interesting what kind of choice they made. And what they chose was exactly these two frames: warning about hardship and success and solidarity. And how is this conveyed? So again, the words are extracted from the speech of the Prime Minister. But what are they extracting is actually, first of all, the metaphor of the virus being an enemy, okay? And then the other one is the construction of a unification, of construction of something that we can all together, this solidarity discourse that I was hinting at before. So what the viewers of television, BBC TV news at 10 o'clock at night, which is the most popular time for TV news, are given this message: the way ahead is hard, and it's still true that many lives will sadly be lost. Yet it is also true there's a clear way through. But in this fight, so the metaphor of the virus being an enemy that we have to fight, we can in no doubt that each and every one of us is directly enlisted. Okay, so we have success if we are together. If we stay together, we'll rise to that challenge again. So challenge is another metaphor. We have a fight and a challenge, and we'll come through stronger than ever. So we are stronger than our enemy if we stick together. Okay, so you can understand how the creation of this, the construction of this discourse of the virus as the nasty one, which is obvious, of course, okay, but it's also described as how can I say, anthropomorphized, so represented as a human being, okay, that we have to fight, we have to win over. At the same time, we can do this if we are together. So in a way, the Prime Minister says lots of things, but it is through the BBC that we are actually have access to this particular discourse, because the BBC makes us this particular choice. Okay, are you with me? Does it make sense?
Yep.
Okay, so next, please. Thank you. So I'm not going to go through this, but as I said, I'll leave it with you, with Zorina, because I don't want to bore you. But I've done the same thing with this other speech, and you would see that the same thing is true. So Zorina, can you go through, please? Next one, and next one, and next one. So that's it. So no, next one. Okay, so I got to my concluding remarks about this first study, which is in its infancy, really. I just started it with a colleague from journalism. So TV news selection is crucial, as I was saying before, to the construction of a discourse of crisis that, one, portrays COVID as an enemy to win, okay? So the Prime Minister uses these metaphors. And also, it's a discourse that invokes solidarity, unity, so brings a country together, okay? And it's important, especially considering that the government is a conservative government, okay? Next, please. So in a way, the BBC represents Johnson, Boris Johnson, as some kind of a hero. So he's, of course, I don't know if you are familiar with the president of the Prime Minister of New Zealand, who addresses her, and she's a wonderful woman. She addresses her people, saying she calls it a team of 5 millions. So the whole country is a team. She's working with the country. It's a beautiful, fantastically vibrant expression. Very, very. So she really is encouraging this construction, this discourse of solidarity. So Johnson doesn't say the same, but really is actually going very much towards a construction of a collectivity that only together can defy the enemy, the virus enemy. Okay, thank you. So this is my my first study. So are you terribly bored now, or would you like to go ahead? Would you like to ask questions maybe at this time?
Yep, if you want, we can have if there's
maybe it would be nice
questions
to have some questions if you have any comments. Yeah, that would be nice. Yeah.
Yep. So
Hi.
do you have any questions?
Hi.
Okay. Hi, Alpha. Oh, not you. So who is this?
Is it me? It's Joe?
Yep, go ahead, Joe.
Hi. I don't have question actually, but I just I thought it would be very interesting. Your study is very interesting. I thought it would be very interesting to study the American situation by by exactly the same concept. How everything is so divided because they are from different states, and the political systems and all the riots that's going on, like two different things at the same time, and how everything is overlapping. So yeah, that's just like what I'm thinking as I'm listening to you.
Yes, thank you very much. That's a very can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you so much, Joe. Very, very interesting comments. And in fact, one of our original idea was actually to compare the UK with the US, but then in our small group we decided that it would be too much, so we actually started from the UK, but we might actually extend. But are you absolutely right? So there is this idea of solidarity and unity over and above a context of great division, and especially in the United States, where the division is absolutely very, very strong. And it is in that context in particular that the virus is seen as the enemy. So we should all be together, which has been a strategy, a political strategy for a long, long time. If you remember the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union, Russia at the moment, always they were one against the other. And that actually used to bring quite a lot of unity within the country, within each country. So it's a strategy that the United States has used for a long time. So thanks a lot for the comment. Very useful. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Joe. Anyone else has anything that they want to ask or they want to share? Okay, probably not at the moment. So do you want to continue, Roberta?
Sure. Yeah, why not? Okay. So can you share the, yeah.
All right, so can you see it? Oh, hold on. Okay.
Excellent. So
Let me...
you go on slideshow, no?
Yep. Not that one. Okay.
Excellent. Very good. So the second example is an example of what I do. So for a long time, I've been working with strange people. So people who are, it's a small group, okay? So I wanted to do a study on how this small group that I'll describe in a minute is represented on television, especially in documentaries, television documentaries on them, okay? So my second topic is, again, critical discourse analysis of, again, spoken discourse, because television, of course, is spoken discourse. And again, I'm interested in how ideologies or particular ideas about a specific group are conveyed through the television. So my topic is about documentaries. Now, I'm sure you know that documentaries are films, okay, but differently from fictional films that tell about stories. I mean, there are lots of films I'm sure you've seen. Documentaries are supposed to be real thing, to tell us, they are films that promise a degree of truth, or at least can share with us the experience of an attempt at truth. And this is a very good quote from Rout 1991. So we try, when we are watching a documentary, we are expecting some kind of real information. Okay, thank you. So Montgomery, for instance, 2007, believes that it's not unrealistic to assume that the verbal and visual content of documentaries or factual television, to a degree, it's taken by viewers as being informative and credible. So when we watch something which is any kind of documentaries, any kind of factual films, we expect them to be the truth. You know, we don't expect to be fooled, right? Thank you. But can we really believe in this? Do we really believe the documentaries are the truth, that they give us the truth, that they're really neutral, that they're really impartial? And in fact, Millar and Crone, to 2015, start actually saying that it is very challenging, it is very rare for a documentary to function as an objective, authentic representation of reality, because there's always some kind of modification of reality. So it's not really true that they give us the truth. Thank you. So I'm interested in documentaries on this particular group. They're called, these rather, because it's not just one group. They're called Travellers and Gypsies. I don't know if you have done the same in your country, but these are people who are, the only difference between travellers and us is that we live in houses, on flats, and they prefer to live in caravans because they want to move around. They want to move, always to be in a continuous movement, okay? Other than that, we are the same, okay? But they are mobile people, okay? Yeah, thank you. So, and because they're mobile people, the people in society, in mainstream society, don't like them. So they are stigmatized, they are marginalized by people like me and you who live in houses, okay? So the documentaries that I'm looking at are expected to shed light on these communities, because people usually don't know much about these communities. So when we watch a documentary on gypsies and travelers, we expect to learn about these documentaries. But what kind of truths do we learn? And do we really learn the reality, or do we learn some kind of a representation that is necessarily ideological? Thank you. That's my question. So in a documentary, a documentary is actually a very complicated piece of text, because there are different parts in it. There are interviews, okay, with lots of different participants, experts, not expert, people from the street, etc. And then there is a so-called voice-over narrator, who is the voice of the journalist who tells us the story. Okay, I came here, I interviewed this and that, I really was interested in the community, blah, blah, blah. And this is sometimes called the voice of God, because it's a voice that organizes everything. It's kind of the voice that knows everything, right? Because it's the voice of the journalist who, having carried out the study, can tell us about it. Now, this voice over narrator can be invisible and disembodied. Sometimes we just don't see the journalist, or can be somebody whom we see physically present and who speaks to the camera. So there are different versions. And of course, when you don't see the journalist, it's a bit strange, because it's who is speaking here? Who is actually the actor of this documentary? Thank you. Okay, so in this case, I carried out a quantitative analysis and also a qualitative analysis. So, for instance, it was important for the viewers and for the construction of a particular discourse to analyze the percentage of talk that is allotted to the voiceover, because what is more important in a documentary, the interviews in which lots of other people participate, or are we actually as viewers paying much attention to the voiceover, so the person who tells us his or her views about the community? So again, what I did is I created a corpus, I'll tell you in a minute, so, and looked at the different amount of percentage that was present in each of the 3 documentaries that I looked at. Okay, so in the first one, which is called Eviction, the voiceover amounted to 43% of the total word count. Okay, in Children it was 36%, but this documentary was slightly shorter, and in Travellers Town 84%. Okay, so that's amazing, because Travellers Town is a more ideologized documentary, the one that is less, I mean, it's the one that is most cruel, the cruelest one against this community. They really describe this community in very, very negative terms. And look at the percentage of the voiceovers, 84%. So in interviews in the documentary really have a very, very small space, while in the other it's actually more balanced. Okay, thank you. So, and then also I carried out a qualitative analysis. So again, of the voiceover. So what kind of pronouns, for instance, were used? So I looked, for instance, at we and I, that reflect the way that journalist speaks about himself or herself. So for instance, in Eviction, the journalist says, tonight on Dispatches, we investigate the battle between the traveling community, their neighbors, and the law. We investigate why some people don't want them next door. We ask how far these minority groups can keep their culture, blah, blah, blah. So there is a kind of a legitimation of the journalist's voice. We can ask questions, we investigate, so we promise the truth, okay? Which is a very interesting way of presenting the topic. Thank you. Same thing happens in Travellers Town, which is very bad and a very cruel documentary. But here we have the I. So the journalist is not part of a team. It's actually him, all himself. I. So I occurs quite a lot of time, 45 times. Also with verbs that attribute lots of agency to the journalist. Things like I learned, I exposed, I wanted to know, I walked away, I paid a visit, I made an approach, I saw, I went undercover. So he is the hero, so to speak. And this community is only, how can I say, a way of showing how good the journalist is. Thank you. So how are the Travellers and Gypsies represented in the voiceover? What kind of verbs are associated with them? Are they active verbs? Are they passive verbs? Do travelers have any agency? Do they actually speak? Are the verbs used to give them some kind of strength and autonomy, independence, or are they just used in a very passive way? Okay. Thank you. So there are differences between the documentaries. For instance, the Eviction, this is an excerpt. These gypsy families stay around Leeds, but there's no space on any council or private sites. Wherever they stop, within days, bailiffs or the police move them on. So here, the Travellers are the actors, so the protagonists, so to speak, of these verbs. But as you can see, they stay around, but then immediately the verbs that refer to them switch actors. So the bailiffs move the gypsies. So they become the victims, the subjects of this move. They cannot decide by themselves. They have to go because somebody else tells them to go. Okay. Thank you. On the contrary, in Travellers Town, which is the nasty one, as I said, look at it, what happens. My investigation to Rathkeale, which is a town which was inhabited mainly by or had a lot where lots of gypsies lived. The town that Travellers took over had unexpectedly led me to Paris in France, where I tracked down and came face to face with a crew of Travellers con men, so people who how can I say, cheat, tell lies to people in order to circumvent them, all of whom are residents in or have strong links with the Limerick town Rathkeale. So here, the only thing that we find in an active form is that Travellers took over a city. Oh, aren't they terrible? They're really terrible. Oh my God! And they also are con men, so they cheat on people. So yes, they have agency. They are active, but they're active in a negative way. So again, we get the idea that they are strong because they are the protagonists of these sentences, but in actual fact they are represented in a negative way. Next, please. So what I did is I put together a corpus. Now I don't know if you know what a corpus is. Okay, you know. Okay, so I put together the three, even though I had very little, the texts were not very big, but I put all the voiceover from the three documentaries together and all the interviews from the documentaries together, so I could actually interrogate with a concordance program what was actually happening. So I found out what the most frequent words were. And in particular, I'll give you some examples now. Of course, the most important word, the most common word was gypsies and travellers, but that was obvious. But I found other words that were quite interesting. So for instance, the word community and the word law, just to give you an example. So how were they used in this documentary? Okay. Can you change slide, please? Okay, so again, there were differences between the documentary called Travellers Town, because that used community and law in a very negative way. So an example is, there is, however, no escaping the fact that the settled community are steadily vanishing from Rathkeale. So because of, basically that means that because of the gypsies are there, people who are settled, people who live in houses, are actually leaving. So very negative interpretation of community. And the other one is another excerpt. The vast majority of Rathkeale's wealthy travellers have, of course, earned their money legitimately through antiques, property, and other concerns. But according to my sources, some chose to operate outside the law. So again, another negative concordance for law, outside, and not within the law, but outside the law. So again, negativity. Thank you. Other documentaries are more subtle. So for instance, the one that talks about children, it says it's against the law not to go to school unless you can show you're being taught at home. Tammy, who is a child, has not been to school for 2 years. So again, we had the same thing here, but it's more subtle. It doesn't say Tommy is a horrible man, a horrible boy because he's going against the law. It says it's against the law not to go to school. Okay, thank you. And also, what are the questions and the interviews in documentary? Sorry, there's an S missing there. Are they neutral or are they implicative? So, and again, just an example of the open questions. In eviction, a beautiful question is, what's it mean to be a gypsy? And Robert, who is in the interview, says everything. Live on the land, work on the land, take off the land what you want to take off the land, because God says it. Okay, so we can actually say that it's a nice question, it's a clean question. And Robert is free to say nothing. I mean, living, you know, for me, being a gypsy is wonderful because I live on the land, I cultivate the land and take the products. God said this, okay? So even it has a religious justification for this. Next, please. And the other one is another open question. What do people think of you outside of here? Ask the voiceover. And so one boy says, I don't know. We never really meet any people outside of here. And the other boy says, they don't really chat to us. They don't like us. So again, it's a question that allows these children to actually say what they think of the other community. They don't say anything bad. They just say they don't want to talk to us because they don't like us. Okay, next. And again, I don't have time to go into this, but again, it's important in a documentary, of course, because documentaries are not just language, but they're also visuals. I was really interested in looking at the visuals. So for instance, the one documentary that is really nice to the Gypsies and Travellers proposes close-ups of these children. You can see how lovely Tammy is. And when there is in a film, there's a close-up, that is because you want to express the emotions of this. So the children are treated like real children, nice children. They're really fascinating. They're so beautiful, and they really are. And you feel for them. You can empathize with them through the close-up. Next. And then look at another question instead. So we're talking about open questions, and what about implicative questions? So questions that suggest a particular view. In Travellers Town, the nasty one, do you want the travellers out of Rathkeale? What kind of question is that? And the answer is, yes, it'd be nice to see them gone. Of course, what am I going to say? No, I want them to stay. What about the next one? Do you think that the travellers are trying to take over Rathkeale? Of course. For the outside looking in, it looks that way. So it's the journalist who is already offering a question which expects a particular response to the interviewee. So it's not a neutral question, but it's a question which already has a hidden, in fact not too hidden, agenda here. Next, please. So in conclusion, documentaries are not completely factual. In fact, they express a particular vision of reality, a particular ideology on the point of view of the journalist, a particular discourse. In this case, the discourse that Travellers Town, in fact, it's called, the original title is the town that Travellers took over, which I shortened to Travellers Town. The discourse that particular documentary creates or constructs is that travellers are horrible. They're cheats. They're illegal. They're bad. Okay. So it's a negative discourse. So again, this is ideological because viewers who watch this particular documentary say, "Oh, they're really nasty. Oh my God, I don't want to have anything to do with them. So if they come next to me, I'm going to call the police. I'm going to ask the bailiffs to remove them immediately." So this is the creation of something that is, as I said, negative. Thank you. Next. So this is, I'll come to the end. So this is basically my general conclusion. So what I'm trying to convey to you is that language is not at all neutral. It's never neutral. We use it to convey specific ideas, our own ideas. And as you can see in this particular, in these two examples, I wasn't talking about big ideas, we were talking about big politics, but I was talking about very small ideas. In the case of the UK Prime Minister, discourse language is used to create a sense of unity that people need to accept. That people need to accept the limitations of individual liberties during the COVID lockdown. We were locked down in the houses. I'm sure you probably had the same thing. So it was only through this this appeal to solidarity and to the we're gonna find this horrible monster, which is the virus, that we accepted this to be locked up in our houses. In the case of documentaries, language was used to create a sense of antagonism against mobile communities that are different, that propose a different kind of life from settled society, from the people who live in houses. Okay, so I'm finished, and thank you for listening. I've got another slide to just really thank you. Can you change, please? So so basically, using CDA, we can become aware of how language works and resist this manipulation that is always there. So there is so much more to talk. I can talk, you know, to you about lots of things. For instance, very close to what Zorina did in her research and a PhD, what happens in a classroom? Do students have a voice? Do students in different countries talk in different places? Maybe be another time, but for the moment, and next slide, please. For the moment, thanks for listening, and I will, if you are interested, I'll give you the references. But in fact, you've seen, I keep calling you Stina like my colleague Zorina. I will resend this these slides because I realize there's one mistake. There's an S missing, and that's something I want to add. So I'll resend it to you so you can circulate it again, if you don't mind. Okay.
Yep.
So any question, any comment, I would be delighted to answer.
All right. Thank you so much, Roberta. That was a very interesting sharing. And do we have any questions, or do we have any comments or things that you want to share with Roberta? Do you want to say something, Iman?
I say 19. Yeah.
Can I say something?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, please.
Okay, so you were talking about the narrator and journalists in documentaries, right?
Yeah.
So do you mean that how they use the language to convince people that the documentaries is real, but you say that not all documentaries are real? Do you mean that how the journalists and the narrator use their language to convince people? Is that what you mean by it?
Well, I was saying that they, of course, what they film is true because, you know, they go into the community of gypsies and travelers, and so what they film is true, but the way that they present that information is not really true. Is probably not the right word, because everything is true, but is a representation that is in sync, which is consonant with their view, with their particular idea about this community. So, for instance, the documentary about the town, the travelers' town, keeps talking about travelers as cheat, as bad, as thieves, con men, and all that. So all these words stay with us. So we developed very soon this idea that they are horrible people, that we should really not have anything to do with them. So it's the choice of words that is important, because through the choice of these expressions, we conceive this idea that they are nasty people. So when, for instance, there is a law, they immediately say outside the law, right? So the combination of law with outside means that they are not operating within legality. Okay, so when they say that the town has been taken over by the travelers, it means that they are doing something nasty. So that there are too many of them in the town, and that the people who were the residents in the town had been kicked out, which is probably not true. So they are not saying the truth, because that's also a truth, but they are presenting their particular interpretation of the reality. Does it make sense?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Roberta.
Okay, you're welcome.
Hi,
Okay.
may I
Go
please
ahead,
ask a
Alpha.
question? Hi, thank you so much, first of all, to Ms. Zoe and Dr. Roberta for spending your time with us today. So my
It was lovely.
question is, thank you. So earlier you mentioned about Prime Minister Boris
Mhm.
Johnson and also
Yes.
Jacinda Ardern and how they execute their power via the discourse. Do you feel
Yeah.
like there's any difference between a country whose backbone is based on military, like Myanmar or Thailand? Is there a difference in how they execute power via their speech to countries that are more democratic, like the UK or Malaysia?
What a
you.
beautiful question, a fantastic question. Thank you so much. Yes, I expect, I don't know, because I don't know, I have not looked at the discourse of Myanmar and other countries, but definitely, I really expect there is a different kind of discourse. Because as I was saying, the reason why Boris Johnson proposed this discourse of unity, or let's all be friends, let's all be together, is because he wanted to give us something good to justify this limitation of freedom. So it's a discourse that instead of imposing from tomorrow you're going to be at home. In fact, he never really said that. We were encouraged to stay at home. We were encouraged, and we would say, save lives, say the national the National Health Service. So there were all appeals. There were not commands. They were not interesting from the point of view of Speech Act. We were not dictated. We were not given orders. We were given recommendations. Even though, paradoxically, the police were allowed to give us fines if we were outside, if we were meeting with people. So there was this balance, which is actually, I would say, is probably part of what the discourse in a democratic country has to be. So not impositions. I mean, I'm telling you to do this for your own benefit and for the benefit of others. But there was this slogan: save lives, stay at home, save lives, which is, in a way, it sounds more an invitation. I mean, it's a command, of course. It's a directive. In Speech Act theory, it's a directive. But still, since it was associated with save lives, it becomes some kind of an appeal rather than an imposition, if you know what I mean. But beautiful question. Yes, I do expect that the discourse in other countries which are less democratic, yes, must have been absolutely very, very different. So with kind of orders, command, the directives, without any explanation of any sort. Yes. So absolutely beautiful question. Thank you so much. You're so interesting. You are really so interesting. It's wonderful.
And I think, Roberta, just to add, it also shows that Boris Johnson, he's giving the responsibility of action to the people. So rather than dictating what they have to
You're
do,
absolutely right. Absolutely right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's all sharing. We're all doing together. It's like, as I said, like the Prime Minister of New Zealand, a team of 5 million. Gosh, it's so strategic. It's so I like her very much, and I'm sure she's a fantastic leader. But she's also very strategic. She chose that particular phrase, which really encourages people to join in, to support each other, to respect the lockdown. Absolutely.
And I think if we were to look at from the Malaysian perspective, our Prime Minister also gave a couple of speeches during the pandemic, during our lockdown. Well, not really a lockdown, but we call it like movement control order. So it's,
right. Okay.
Yeah, we don't call it lockdown as in lockdown. So what he says in most of his speeches is that he mentions a lot of comments that he saw on Facebook, on social media. And he uses this as some sort of a joke, but at the same time, he says, okay, this is what you're doing. This is how you manage the control order. But, at the same time, you have to stay at home. Yeah.
Yes.
So I think it's very interesting. So we have a question on the chat. Amirul, he's asking, what's the difference between critical discourse analysis and discourse analysis?
Okay, very good question as well. Okay, discourse analysis in general is when you look at how language is organized, how language conveys a particular idea, etc. So everything is discourse analysis. Now, critical discourse analysis is usually associated with, first of all, with particular scholars, like, for instance, Van Dyck, Van Leuven, Vodak. I can give you lots of names. Machine, Meyer, etc. Foucault, one of the, but Fairclough, right? Fairclough especially. But the idea is that you identify something which is not particularly good, something which is a bit distorted, something that could be addressed, which is not quite right, and you bring it to the fore, you bring it to the attention, so that maybe you can change it. So, for instance, I don't know, there's lots of discourse, lots of critical discourse analysis against racism, right? Lots about anti-women discourse. So, or for instance, we have to learn to be more respectful, and this, for instance, advertising that it's not respectful, things like that. So critical discourse analysis usually looks at public discourse, the discourse that circulates, the text that circulate in reality, in society, to bring up the awareness that we can change those discourses. Okay, so we can use the right words instead of using words that are disrespectful, and raise awareness, for instance, of particular groups that are disadvantaged. Okay, or for instance, Zarina, you could have called your study critical discourse analysis. If you look, I mean, you could have, but you decided not to. But if we look at the difference between students and the way some students coming from a particular country are disadvantaged when they come to UK because they are socialized into a different kind of classroom management and classroom and form of teaching. So what can we do to make them feel better, to help them, etc. So that's just an example. Critical really means that we want to address a problem. We want to sort something which is not quite right.
Mm-hmm. Do you think we could also consider, when we publish our research, using CDA, we are also somewhat manipulating language to share, what's right, what we think is right? Yeah.
Absolutely. So in CDA, I don't know if I understood your question, Zarina. So are you saying that when we publish, when we write a study, when we produce a study, that is also CDA in our study?
Yeah, is it considered as that? Because we're also using the language to manipulate people who we think are, because you talk about racism, you talk about anti-feminist. So we're using the language to tell them that, this is how it should be. Is that considered as CDA as well?
Yes. I mean, we see in CDA people don't think there is one truth. There are different truths. Okay, so they only say this is what some people say in for instance, newspapers, but maybe there is another way of looking at it. So they're very relativistic. So they are very relativist. So they are, as I said, they believe in different truths. So what you're saying is actually quite right, because as you analyze a particular way of using language and propose, we don't actually propose anything. We just point out the particular use of language. You are again doing the same thing, but as you do that, you are suggesting there's more than one truth, more than one reality, really, more than one way you're looking at something.
Because I think it should be looked at from which perspective that you're looking things at, right? Because
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. A very relativist perspective, really. Yeah. There's absolutely no CDA scholar would say this is it. No, nobody would say that. They
Okay.
would say some people see it this way, and we can propose another way of seeing it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So do we have any more questions?
Miss, I have questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Zoe and Dr. Roberta, for spending your time and sharing your knowledge with us. So my question is, do you think reality show like Keep Up with the Kardashian, where they portray a certain characters to be this or that, and we all know that reality show are fully scripted, and are they quite similar with the commentaries, where you say that the commentaries are not fully the truth? That is my question.
So sorry, you're talking about documentary.
Yes?
Because there was a bit of an echo.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you repeat it?
Alright, okay. I'll think. Okay, my question is, do you think reality show like Keep Up with the Kardashian, where they portray a certain characters to be this or that, and we all know that reality show are fully scripted. So are they quite similar with documentaries, where you say that the commentaries are not the fully truth and they are not
Absolutely.
And that's the question.
Terrible echo. Yes,
Oh my god. Do you need me to repeat again?
No, Azlin, could you please turn off your mic?
Turn off my mic.
Matt,
Sorry, we can't hear you, Roberta.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so that question is really interesting, because yes, it's a scripted, as you say, it's a scripted language, so it's all already prepared. Yes, absolutely, it's not spontaneous. So, and it's because of that of course it conveys a particular idea, a particular ideology, absolutely, a particular way of looking at these communities. Yes, thank you. That's a very good question. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Azlin. Do you have any more questions?
Azim, no? Azim, don't you have a question, Azim? I think, no?
I think that's all.
No.
Thank you, Doctor.
All right. Thank you, Azlin. All right. So if there's nothing else, thank you so much, Roberta, for
Very
spending
welcome.
your time. Hope we didn't
Very
take your
welcome.
lunch time. Thank you so much for sharing your research. Very interesting. And I think it is something that I could look into in looking at how our prime ministers are giving
Absolutely.
his speeches. Yeah, because I keep on thinking about it whenever I watch his speeches. So thank you so much.
Very
Thank
good.
you,
Let's do something together. Let's do a
Yes.
comparison between. That'd be great.
Definitely. I'll keep in touch. I'll get in touch with
Absolutely,
you.
yes, absolutely. Thank you,
Okay.
everyone. It was so lovely to meet you, and I
Yeah.
hope I'll see you again. Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Take
Bye.
care. Okay, so thank you everyone for being here. That was a lovely session. She has left. So thank you. So we'll talk. Do you have any questions? Do you have any comments? Anything you want to share? How do you feel? Are you sleepy?
We're feeling everything.
Feeling everything? Overwhelmed? Did you have fun? Were you okay with her content? Was it difficult?
Yeah, we were.
It was a bit difficult.
Yeah, it was a bit difficult,
understand.
but above all, it was very astonishing.
It is, yes, and I think very informative. That's right, Faris. And I think, I mean, critical discourse analysis is a little bit heavy, and especially with us, at night at the moment. But I hope you could think of this as an opportunity to, yes, definitely, Najwa, it requires a lot of thinking. And when you say about CDA, the word critical is very much critical. So you got to think outside of the box. Okay. So I hope this helps you in the future, thinking about your probably future research or your FYP if you're into CDA. I think we have a couple of lecturers at the faculty who are interested in CDA. So things like this is something that you can think about. Yes, Iman, do you have anything to say?
No.
Because you unmute your microphone, so that's why I'm asking. So it's late. I hope you enjoyed the session. Like I said, I'm recording and I'll be sharing with you the link for YouTube later. If not tonight, then tomorrow. Okay, so have a good night, get some rest and take care. I'll see you tomorrow. For Group 2B, good luck with your tests tomorrow. Okay, thank you everyone. You may leave the session.
Thank you, Ms. Zoe.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Zoe.
Thank you. Okay, thank you everyone. Probably better leave before I remove you.
Okay, madam. Okay.
Okay,
Bye.
thank you.